Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shepheard-Walwyn podcast. Now, today we have a very special occasion because we're here talking with Shirley Galligan, who is the author of a truly beautiful book called Munu, the most special rhino in the world. So seemingly it's a departure from our traditional fare at Shepheard-Walwyn. But as I think you'll find, it's very purpose-driven and very focused on improving our relationship with our environment, among other things. Now, what I'm going to do very quickly is introduce you to Shirley, who's spent her life protecting the environment and helping people change their relationship with their environment. So it's a much more collaborative and nurturing one. And we're going to get into finding out why she wrote this beautiful, stunning book. Shirley, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Thank you, Jonathan. That was a lovely introduction.
Oh, well, I mean, Shirley, just for people who are not familiar with your work, I just wonder if you could just introduce yourself and explain to why you came to be running the White Lion Foundation, which is what you're currently doing.
Well, I've spent my life basically helping wild animals in need. So that's basically involved sort of rescuing them from really sort of often very tragic conditions. And I've sort of obviously been doing a huge amount of sort of media around their situation. So I've kind of dedicated my life just to helping animals in need. And I felt as though there was definitely a need for a new wildlife organization, and one that was going to take on sort of really big projects that some organizations weren't prepared to do, or they didn't have the resources or the time to do. So that's basically how I set up the White Lion Foundation.
It sounds like some of the animals that you support, I mean, Munu being a great example, are in very challenging situations. So is it that most people are scared away by the fact that it is so difficult to take care of Munu?
I mean, Munu was a colossal problem, basically. He is a 20-year-old male rhino. He is one of the rarest rhinos in the world, one of 80 male breeding rhinos left, which is, tragic figures. And Munu was found in a reserve in South Africa, literally wandering around in circles. Both his retinas had been detached because he'd got into a fight with another male rhino. And it was a really tragic situation, and it was the first time that South African National Parks, and I would really like to thank them, worked with an organization, a charitable organization, and with the amazing Mantis Group and Founders Lodge to relocate this animal to a safe haven and to give him long-term sanctuary, because previously that option wouldn't have been available for an animal like Munu.
Fantastic. So how did Munu come to the attention of the foundation?
Well, I mean, we had literally just launched the White Lion Foundation at the Palace of Westminster in May 2019. And then it was the summer of that year that we got a call from Brett Barlow, who's one of our directors, who's a big rhino conservationist. And he sort of said, I've just received this call about this rhino called Munu. And we were all like, open mouth, God, this is horrendous, this is terrible, what's going to happen to this rhino? And he sort of said, well, the rhino probably won't be able to survive unless somebody steps in and does something about it. So immediately our board, which is Adrian Gardner, who is basically the man behind bringing wild animals back into the Eastern Cape, Dr. John Knight, who is one of our top wildlife vets in the world, and myself and Brett said immediately, yes, let's go with this. We'll take it on as a project. And so we set about literally rehoming Munu. To found it and building him a fantastic 5-acre facility to keep, because obviously rhino, they're huge animals, and they have enormous amount of needs, and especially somebody like Munu who has special needs because he was blind.
Amazing. It sounds like a very special group of people.
Oh, they are incredible. And also I have to also mention Madam Sandy Tolman, who's our honorary patron. And also she's incredible. She actually, with His Serene Highness Prince Albert, and I actually was introduced to Sandy at that point, was the person behind helping move the prince's leopards from his little small zoo in the Principality to South Africa, which was amazing. And also the actress Helen Worth, who is an honorary patron. And she is just one of those great ambassadors for wild animals. And, she has spent years of her life just, campaigning for them. And she is amazing. So we have this really dedicated, brilliant group, actually, and very proactive. But they're all highly knowledgeable, and they're can-do people. So things happen. as a result.
Amazing. And just for our listeners, Helen Worth, for those who may not know, she's played the role of Gail Tilsley for over 40 years and is one of Britain's most loved actresses. But I think the character comes before the actress, doesn't it, really, in our consciousness? So it's one of the things that Helen is a committed conservationist and very purpose driven.
Yeah, no, she is a wonderful, wonderful person, and she's a passionate conservationist, and she speaks very eloquently about these issues. So she's been a leading ambassador, and we're so honoured to have her as one of our honorary patrons.
Fantastic. Now I'm going to get into what made you write the story about Munu, but just as a step back, the foundation is the White Lion Foundation. So I just wondered if you could tell us where that name came from, because I think there's a story in that, isn't there?
Yeah, no, there is. There was actually 3 white lion cubs that were going to be trafficked out of Pakistan. And fortunately, we were able to intervene and stop this from happening. And it was really tragic because one didn't know really where the end destination was for these cubs. So we've actually managed, we do monitor them, and the cubs now have been rehomed in Pakistan and they're safe and well. We did actually try to see if we could get them rehomed to South Africa, but because of CITES and the judge ruling in Pakistan, basically there was no movement of any wild animals out of Pakistan. So that was prevented, but still they have now good lifetime care in Pakistan, which is amazing, because otherwise their fate was really unknown. They could have died in transit, they could have ended up in some horrendous situation. And that's one thing the White Lion Foundation is so against, is the trade in wild animals. It's deadly, and it's a huge billion-dollar industry, and it needs to stop. And so our organisation intervened at a time where a lot of people are very sensitive to these issues, working in certain countries, working in certain places. But we're brave, and Dr. Knight went out to assess the animals, make sure that they were okay, that their welfare was being taken care of. So as an organisation, we like to be brave, and we first and foremost thing is the animal, and are they okay, and what's their needs. So that's how we respond. We look at what the plight of the animal is, and we respond in that basis.
And I think it's phenomenal that you're able to help create a solution that kept them at home, I think, really. Yeah. And given how, and if I can encourage the listeners to go and look at the White Lion Foundation website, you'll see pictures of these white lions, and they're just the most beautiful creatures I think I've ever seen.
They are exquisite, absolutely exquisite. And, very sad that because these animals are so beautiful, people want to own them, they want to have them as their private pet. And that's just not how these animals should live, and it's not the environment they should be in. So, the message out there is, appreciate wildlife in its natural environment. Please don't try to have it for yourself, because that's just not acceptable. These animals have special needs, and they exist perfectly well in their natural habitats.
So when you founded the foundation, then I think you were obviously protecting, as you said, you're protecting animals that other people don't feel able to protect. But I understand that the foundation does scientific research and does a lot of awareness raising as well.
Education is really important. We work with, we have an absolutely beautiful snow leopard project, and we work with BWCDO on that up in the Karakoram Mountains. And, one of the things that's very important is working with the local community in terms of talking to them, education, making them understand that the snow leopards are not a threat, looking at solutions that maybe if the snow leopards are coming in and taking their livestock, there's ways around that. So we're looking at building bomas. So we protect the livestock, and then the snow leopards.
Sorry, what are bomas?
Bomas are like basically corrals. So they're sort of like basically wooden built or concrete built, and they protect the livestock from predator attacks. Got it. So it's a very simple technique, but it's highly effective. And I think when you talk to people with empathy and understanding for their situation as well, and you can work out solutions. People have to coexist with wildlife on their doorstep in many of the countries we work, and it's not always easy, and we have to respect that. So we kind of work together with people, and we try and find the best solution that works for everybody. I
think it's such a great thing that you've done there, because I think it's one of those things where locally there's a massive problem for local populations if they're literally losing the food off their table.
Absolutely.
then you've got to protect them, but also that, you know, it also removes the snow leopard as a threat to their existence as well, doesn't it? So it's quite a wonderful solution.
Yes, and I mean, you know, there are as few as like 4,000 snow leopards left in the wild. And that is truly, truly shocking. So, you know, some of our iconic animals are really suffering, whether it's the impact from the environment or whether it's just loss of prey and all sorts of reasons, or predator, you know, being, unfortunately, you know, revenge killings and stuff that happen, or even like taken for trophies. So there are so many issues affecting our wildlife. So we really do now, it's critical we support them as much as we can.
Brilliant. So talking about that the work in the foundation of the education and raising awareness, I can see the book that you've written as a wonderful way of doing that for younger audiences and also for parents. Because as a parent, when I was reading it, it was, you know, there's some really interesting stuff in it. So I just wonder if we can move on now to your decision to write this book and to write a children's book as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, children are the future, and they will be our future conservationists. They will be the people protecting the planet, protecting our wildlife. For me, I felt as though Munu's story was, you know, captivating, and also Munu as a character. He's such a charming animal. You know, I've seen his sort of rehabilitation and how he's adapted to his new home, and he's really quite an extraordinary animal. Plus, he has this unique look because we had to shave off his horn to make sure he would travel okay. And he really is really quite exceptional. So I felt instinctively as though this was a story that would be so compelling for children and they would absolutely love it. And I wanted it to be something that would be a book that would be available to children all around the world. And they would all get the enjoyment of reading Munu's story, but also understand the messaging behind it and the importance of saving these animals. And from what I understand and know from children, they do have a natural empathy to animals. They do care. And they're very instinctive about how they feel. And so I felt as though it was a natural story to be told. And then I was very, very fortunate to receive a call from Morella Lombardo from Shepheard-Walwyn, who basically was as passionate about the story because she'd seen Helen Worth talking about it on television. With Angela Rippon, and she was as passionate as I was about it. And she sort of said, you know, I think this is the perfect children's book. I think this would be amazing. And she said, would you like to write this? So I said, the story is almost inside me. I need to write this book. And so that's really how it all became about. And then I basically wrote the Munu story whilst we're all in lockdown, actually. But it just flowed and it was very natural. And I think, you know, the fact that Munu is blind, but the blindness is really never a problem because Munu has so many other incredible senses that he can call upon to basically make sure his world is a good world. And there was a team of people around there that all had the expertise and all wanted to help and give Munu a really great life. So from Munu being this rhino who potentially would stumble and fall and not have a lifetime care, he basically turned into something that really is an inspiration to all of us who know and hear his story.
Yeah, and the illustrations are by Zoe Barnish, which if anyone's interested or has an interest in children's works, I mean, she's a really quite a famous illustrator and a very skilled one, which I think we can put a couple of pictures up on the website for people to see just how good these illustrations are. So how did that collaboration come about with Zoe?
No, it's incredible. I mean, Zoe is so well respected and she's done work for Sir David Attenborough amongst many notable pieces that she's done. It was actually Morella who made the introduction because I'd explained to Morella that I really wanted a book that would be something that would, you know, extend over time and be something that people would always remember, you know, so it was felt like a classic children's book in many ways. And so Morella understood and she said to me, there's this wonderful illustrator called Zoe Barnish. May I send you through some of her drawings, her illustrations? And as soon as I saw them, I just thought they are absolutely beautiful. They have real depth and the character comes through and I just thought this is going to work perfectly for the Munu book. But I, you know, even every time I would receive, you know, the drawings to the written word, it was almost like what I imagined in my mind, totally compared to what I imagined in my mind. She surpassed it. And some of the illustrations are so, so beautiful. And I think that's why it's a book that will last. And, and hopefully children will remember when they're grown up, and, they'll want to read it to their children. And so, Munu's story, I think, will be one that's timeless, really.
Amazing. So who are the ideal readers for your book?
I would actually say everyone's an ideal reader, because, as you said, as a parent, you've read it to your children. And I think that people really who are interested in wild animals, who are interested in a story, I think everyone can read Munu's story. I've had adults come back to me and say they really enjoyed it, but it is for children. And I want children to really feel like they understand and they know a little bit more about rhino conservation and more about Munu after they've read it, and they feel engaged and excited by what's happening in the world. This is a positive story. I also think for children who maybe are visually impaired, I want them to have this story and to feel inspired by it, to understand that, there are no limits to what can be achieved. There's always hopeful, you can always be hopeful. And I think Munu's story is one of hope. So, and there's humor there too as well. So I think everyone can enjoy Munu's story.
And I know you said earlier about children being conservationists of the future.
Yeah.
So what are your plans to develop this further in the future?
Well, we hope to extend the range of wildlife books. So that's something we'll be doing. But we're also now, through obviously this and through our project work, we are doing education programs for schools and extending our reach so that we can, embrace obviously education and children's learning, so that anything they need to understand about wildlife, obviously the White Lion Foundation is a very good starting point for that. So there's lots of scope for, all children to become engaged in what we're doing and for wild animals.
Fantastic. And one of the things I particularly like is given the challenging nature of the work that you guys do, is a way in taking care of Munu, then you're going to be learning stuff about taking care of rhinos, aren't you? That can then be shared with people that are taking care of rhinos in a more conventional sense with more conventional needs. So it's in that sense you're really improving the field of research and really living the purpose of the foundation.
Yeah, our project work with critically endangered rhinos continues. What we want to do is we want to have a rhino rehabilitation centre and orphanage at Founders Lodge, so that we can help other rhinos like Munu, but also for young orphaned rhinos. And there are plans, hopefully, that Munu in time will find a mate and he will then have offspring, which will then obviously add to the population of a very vulnerable species. There are only 254 southwestern black rhinos, and that is truly shocking. And what we've had during COVID times is obviously a spike in poaching, which is horrific. So now is the time, for all the good work that's been done for conservation, now is the time really to focus our energies and make sure that's not underdone from the pandemic. And we need as much support now as ever, really.
100%. And on that then, because one of the things I'd like to talk about really is how you guys at the White Lion Foundation keep going when there's so much negative news about destruction of habitat and and like you say, we're down to approximately 250 of Munu species. How do you guys keep going when the news can be so challenging and so disheartening?
Well, I've worked on so many projects where I've seen things that you really felt as though, there was no hope, there was no opportunity to change anything, and yet we succeeded. And I think that you can't sit back and just think, oh, well, this is all so bad and, there's nothing really that can be done. There's loads that can be done. We have great opportunities now to really, reverse what's happened, the damage that was done for our species over, many, many years, and really make a difference. We understand what the problems have been. Now we need to find the solutions and now make things really happen for wild animals. And I think if you have spent so much time looking in the eyes of wild animals, I've seen, the tortured faces, the absolutely awful side of what can happen. But then I've seen them reintroduced back into the wild, or I've seen them go into a sanctuary environment, and I've seen what transformation can happen. And it is huge. And when you see, like, just for example, like Munu, it is absolutely, truly amazing. And that's because there is an expert team behind that. There's people who really care, who are compassionate conservationists, and they want to make a difference, and they are doing that. And we're doing that. So, I applaud everyone who's out there, doing that, the important conservation and welfare work that needs to be done.
Fantastic. So, Shirley, what's next? What are you working? Are you working on other books?
I am. I think I have to keep that slightly under wraps at the moment. But yes, I do hope that there will be a follow-up to Munu at some point. But also, we do want to extend the wildlife range, so there will be another book soon. And hopefully, Jonathan, I'll get the chance to talk to you about that when that comes through. But in the meantime, I do the day job, which is basically looking after wild animals. And we just received incredible footage of snow leopards. That were basically our camera traps from the Karakoram Mountains. So we had the first sightings ever of snow leopards in this region that previously had never been studied, which is incredible. So we're hoping to send 30 more cameras up into that area. So, the work continues, and that's just one of many things we're doing. So, please support us. We really appreciate your support. It's a kind organisation, and we do things with integrity. So,
for those of you who may not know where the Karakoram Mountains are, where are they?
It's the mountain range. It stretches over across Pakistan and then through to China. So it's a vast mountain range. And we're just in a small pocket of it where we believe that basically the snow leopards are, but they haven't previously been studied. So that's what we're doing.
And you've captured, although obviously locally people would say that they exist, you've captured the first pictures of them.
Yes, we have visual evidence now, and it was a mother actually and her 2 cubs. So it was
amazing.
It was so beautiful. Yeah. So there you go. They are the successes, and when you have those moments, it makes everything worthwhile.
Amazing. So where can we find out more about the charity and support the foundation?
Oh, that's wonderful, Jonathan. If you visit thewhitelionfoundation.com, and you'll see all our work there and the people who are involved. So
that's fantastic. Well, Shirley, best of luck with the book launch, and I look forward to speaking to you again. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a fabulous interview with Shirley Galligan, who's written a book called Munu, the most special rhino in the world, and it's illustrated by Zoe Barnish. It makes a fabulous gift for children, and if you'll see some of the images on the Shepheard-Walwyn website, and also on the whitelionfoundation.com website as well. So please check it out, because they are doing amazing work. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, keep reading.